Okay, so I think we'll start and kick things off. So hi there, welcome everyone. And firstly, thank you for joining today's webinar. For those of you that haven't joined our webinars before, my name is Sally McDonald, and I'm one of the Client Services Directors here at Alterian in our Bristol office. Our monthly webinar series has now been running since last November, as we really want to show you guys that we're really committed to making sure we show more hints and tips about our products, as well as information about our roadmap to you all. And therefore, on this note, I'm really pleased to have back on the webinar programme Matt Sawkins this month. Matt's one of our product managers at Alterian, and he really does bring a wealth of knowledge and experience to his role, having over 15 years in delivering customer data and campaign management solutions. And he's really passionate about helping customers and partners achieve more value from their solutions. So, Matt, if we take a look at the agenda for today, Matt's going to be taking us through some interesting new releases in Email Manager. So looking at the last engaged metric and the QR codes and barcodes, as well as looking at a technology preview on how we can use adaptive email content based on real-time information. And there will be, of course, some time at the end for some Q&A. So if you have any questions you can think of during the presentation, then if you are logged in via your laptop, you'll find the Q&A section at the top left-hand side of your screen. And if you can't find that, then please do email myself, customersuccess@alterian.com, and I'll make sure I'll monitor this during the presentation. And last but not least, before I hand over to Matt, we will be recording this session for you to refer back to, and we'll make sure the webinar recording is distributed next week with the links via email, as well as on the Alterian Academy. So on that note, I will now unmute Matt and hand over to him. So over to you, Matt.
Excellent, thanks, Sally. And thanks everyone for attending today. So as Sally says, I'm going to go through a few email manager things today. So let's kick off and go straight in. So first one, last engaged metric or last engaged date. Effectively, what is this? Well, it's an additional piece of criteria at a recipient level, additional segmentation capabilities for email manager users. It'll make it really easy for users to implement contact rules, such as number of contacts in the last 7 days, windows of silence, those types of things. In the past, you'd have probably had to try and identify people who've either opened or clicked, and complex list queries, those types of things. Now you've got at your fingertips, very optimized in terms of performance ability to select and identify people who've engaged using common date-based operators, things like that. And I'll show you in a little moment how it works. But just a couple of notes here of what engaged means. So effectively, in Email Manager, a recipient's engaged classed in one of 3 ways. First of all, for someone who's new, when they're loaded into the system, effectively opted in. And why is that? So for example, someone registers on your website, then you click that information, and that information obviously then goes up into a list. So they have given their details to you. You may not have contacted them yet, but they've, as far as in terms of this metric is concerned, they've opted in, because you may want to send out a weekly email that excludes people who have engaged in the last week, and that will include all those new, or vice versa. And then subsequently, of course, as you send out communications, recipients and your customers will open and will click. And then each time that happens, the engaged date for that recipient will be updated. And it's pretty much as simple as that, and that's how it works. If I just flick screens now, and I'll show you very quickly and briefly how this works. So I've got a test list here, and once I've selected it, double click on it. In terms of the list field criteria, enable it, and then here's all the information, all of the criteria that's available in this particular list. And then I've got last engaged down the bottom here. It defaults to the current date time of where I am, 6 minutes past 4 p.m. this afternoon. But as you can see, I said I've got a number of date helpers, so could do something such as last engaged in a certain month, or if you want days from now, if you want to do is before, after, or between, or equal to days before, maybe 7 days, something like that. Or in the example I showed on the, if I blank it out, the example I showed on the presentation, I could set the last engaged date between 2 dates. So it could be after the 1st of June, for example, and I'd use the date helper for that, but before the mid-July, because I want to select a 6-week period. So that will put into that query everyone's last engaged date, either brand new recipient or an open or a click in that 6-week period. And as you can appreciate, very simple to use. We anticipate they'll get a lot of use going forward rather than having to run a number of complex list queries and those types of things. So there we are, as simple as that. So if I go back to the presentation, I'll now move on to QR codes and barcodes. So I've got a couple of examples here. There's a QR code just for reference and a barcode. And there's a couple of properties about those which I'll talk about later. But there's, deploying or implementing and embedding QR codes and barcodes in emails has all sorts of use cases. And I've just picked out a couple of here, just at random. And the classic one is, redemption offers and incentives. Customer receives an email, takes it into the store or into the restaurant, and effectively that voucher gets scanned. Obviously, in most cases, and I do this quite a lot, when I take my family out for pizza, I'm always looking around for the vouchers. You'll be allocated a unique preloaded code, which will be preloaded onto their EPOS system and redemption system. So, of course, if having that data available, you can take that up into Email Manager as well. So the code that gets rendered for me personally, it can then be tracked and know that it's against me rather than the generic offer that everyone in the deployment and the email communication would have had. So it's very as simple as that. In terms of formats, initially we've gone with supporting QR codes, which I see on most of the emails that I get for effectively feeding my family on the cheap, which is my main objective. But also what we found to be the sort of 3 most commonly used sort of barcodes as they are today. And they come in different sizes, and we support that as well. So we have five sizes of QR code, and we can scale either a 1 to 2 in terms of barcode. So how do you actually implement those in Email Manager? Well, it's obviously done at a creative level, and it's, again, pretty straightforward. First thing, I'll look at the syntax at the top here. Must be driven by a variable. So the variable is actually the effectively the code, the offer code that goes into that barcode. So as I said, it could be unique to the individual or a generic redemption offer, such as 10% off Monday, something like that. Then the code type, which is all those code types I showed before, and then the scale 1 to 5 for QR codes or 1 or 2 for a barcode. And that has the example at the bottom here. So I've got my variable name in there, code 128 to the scale of 2, which actually is the item on the barcode there on the top left. Because it's conditional content, it can't be previewed in the editor in the same way that any other conditional content in Creative can't be previewed. But obviously, it can be previewed and send a message. I'll show you that in a little moment. The final element to highlight here is we've added a new event type, an event label, to the event stream for Email Manager, and that's barcode rendered. So effectively, when an email is opened, obviously all of it gets a request for all the images. You'll also get a request for the barcode. So we can then, say for example, you could then look at people who've had a barcode rendered in emails, tie that back to any redemption systems, and understand whether or not these types of offers and these types of barcodes are effective, rather than just going in on an email open. And there are actually 1 or 2 smart email clients out there which may not request all of the images at once, if they're going over the fold, something like that. Admittedly, they are few and far between. The vast majority of email providers request everything at once and then provide all the images at once. So we can't track explicitly whether the user sees that barcode, but we can track whether that barcode was requested in the creative. And then you can then use that in your further analysis and segmentation. Either in Email Manager, of course, because it's an event, you can take it back into the single event view of your your Altium campaign management system. Just give you a quick flick. What does this look like in practice? So if I go to Campaign Builder here, you can see very easily here. There's the creative in terms of and the HTML. There's the barcode and the variable code 128 and 1, and it's as simple as that. As I said, if you try and look at it in preview, because it's conditional content, they won't render those barcodes, which are effectively images, until the time of deployment. But as you saw from the screenshots I put into the presentation, they do actually render in send a message preview. So again, as with Elastic HA, a very simple piece of functionality to implement. Very little syntax required, very simple to do, but has a lot of uses, can be very powerful on that basis. Now moving on, I'm now going to do a technology preview of effectively one of the things that's coming next. And as Sally said, this is real-time adaptive email, which means we've introduced the capability for dynamic creative images on Open. This is really powerful in terms of personalizing the email that is given to the user at the time that they open the email. And also subsequently, if they reopen the email or go back and look at the email, which can happen quite a lot. People flick through things on the phone during the daytime, go back and have a look at it on the iPad in the evening, or even back on the phone whilst they're sitting on the sofa. The world has changed, the world has moved on during that time. Therefore, there may be information in that email that's not relevant anymore or has changed, and you need to provide the latest. Classic examples are stock control, any other information source to do with the customer coming from another system. So in the meantime, they may have also been on your website and updated some information or done a purchase. All of that information is relevant and should be relevant to any email that you render for them when they go and look at it. We're achieving this by having Email Manager working hand in hand with Dynamic Decision Engine, our real-time decisioning engine. So effectively, the two are working in unison to provide the latest and greatest information in the email. And because of that, you've got the ability to use not just what's actually happening in the moment in terms of fast data. It could be, so for example, if someone goes into a store and triggers a beacon, you will know that they're in store. You could use that information in the email because they'll go and then look at the offer that they saw earlier on in the day. Also, you can use lots of the slow historical data, so you know everything about the person as individual. You can query or understand what was their last 3 purchases. So there's static historical data in the mix. As they walk into the store, triggers as they go through on a beacon, so you now know they're in store. You've got that real-time information. So that email, when they go to look at it again, which brought them into the store in the first place, can be really, really fine-tuned for what they're looking at and what the situation is in terms of maybe stock or offers at that moment in time. So I appreciate really powerful. What I'm going to do now is set up a little demo to sort of show you how this might work in terms of stock control. So if I go back to my previous screen, and I'm going to, first of all, for those of you who are not familiar, I'm going to introduce you to Acadian Fashion. 1 or 2 of you may have seen this before in our demos. This is our mock-up fashion retailer. And as you can see, we sell a whole bunch of products at a very reasonable price, if I say so myself. And at a time in the past, I've had a look at this, put a few things in the basket, and then abandon the cart. And what I've got, if you'll see, if I go to Email Manager, sorry, not Email Manager, Outlook now, I have got a classic abandoned cart email. those of you eagle-eyed will see that actually it's from the 26th of the month, so that was a couple of days ago. So this is actually quite an old email now. So if I show you the email here, you'll see that I didn't purchase a couple of items of jewelry in a white shirt, a white iron shirt. You'll see I've also, just to prove that it's there, thrown in QR code against each item as well. But very simple, out the box, abandoned cart email. Obviously, it's there. This is here to show in practice how this could work. It's not a sophisticated email in any shape or form in terms of creative and design. But what I'm now going to do is, if I go back to my store, I also have, just need to move this clear. I also have in the back end of the website, because this is all using out-the-box standard WordPress and WooCommerce EPOS systems. In my EPOS system at the back of the site, I've got the whole stock inventory. Now, of course, in the real world, stock changes, things move around. So remember, on the email creative, I've got the white iron shirt that you saw. So I'm going to take that out of stock now. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm just going to quickly go back to the email. And if I open it again, you'll see it's now gone out of stock. So what's happened there is an EPOS system has placed an item out of stock. I've gone in and opened an email again. DDE has told the email to show an out of stock image, because DDE knows in real time what's happening on the EPOS system. So the EPOS system is not talking to Email Manager. All the decisioning and brains is within DDE. And of course, this is absolutely relevant to me, because this isn't just a generic email with some offers and now all those offers have gone out of stock. This is my individual abandoned cart email with the items that I abandoned, which are unique to me. And in real time, we've been able to change what the email looks like because of what's based on the stock control. What I'm going to do next is actually show you, a little bit more, actually, how real that is. So if I've now got over here on the on the right, my phone, and this is my live real phone here, cast onto the screen. And I bring the stock control back up again. So if I just pull this over here, so you can see my phone as well. Now, if I get that, so that white iron shirt, as you can see, is still out of stock. So I'll go back here. I will put the white iron shirt back in stock, bang, go to my email, look at it again. And as you can see, the learn more image has come back. So that's how quick it is. Every time I open the email again, that is required in that email. And in this example, it's doing it off a WooCommerce stock inventory system on a separate website. So that's a really simple, straightforward example of what's happening there. Just to prove that the QR codes are real and working. So if I go back and find that email again here, you'll notice it still says out of stock here. That's because I haven't closed down the email and opened it up again, because obviously the email is compiled at time of opening. So at that point is when it shows what's in stock and what's out of stock, etc. So I'm going to go back to my phone here, and I've got also on here a QR scanning app, just a free one, very simple as that. So if I now get it to focus, you'll see I went to one of the QR codes, and what it's done, because I put in a dynamic variable in that QR code, and it's effectively the URL of the SKU of that particular item. So by scanning it, URL is compiled and goes to that particular item on the website. It's as simple as that, but also as powerful as that. So that effectively concludes, from a demo point of view, real-time adaptive email. As I said, this is a bit of a technology preview. We have it all functionally working, and it's all there. What we're doing now is going through a process of productizing it. So, especially in terms of setting up rules and things like that, it'll be a lot easier for you as users to do going forward. It's pretty straightforward to set up, but you're going to obviously configure what type of rules you want for the email rendering and those types of things. But in the meantime, whilst we're going from technology preview to fully released product, we're more than happy to talk to you about how it works, what we need to do, and demos with our sales engineers and those types of things, and discuss further. So on that note, just in a quick summary of what we've seen in this very brief session: last engagement date or last engagement metric, very easy to manage contact rules, and much easier list querying against a single field. As I said, in terms of QR codes and barcodes, the common formats that we've got at the moment, very simple to implement, and variable-driven events for effectively unique voucher offers per recipient. And then in terms of the technology preview of real-time adaptive email, you'll be able to see delivering of the real-time content using DDE to deliver that alongside, and the unlimitless options we have in terms of going forward in providing dynamic content in real time. So that's the demo and the summary overall. Many thanks for your time looking at that. I will now just quickly flick over to any questions, and let's open it up to the floor.
Great, thanks for that, Matt. Hugely interesting presentation. Loved the demo. Very excited about the technology roadmap with adaptive email, and really great to hear some of the stuff that we're already building out and already have available today, actually, in Email Manager. So I guess to be clear to everyone on the line, the last engaged date and the barcodes and QR codes are available in the product today. So in the product,
correct.
Guys, so that's absolutely, that's all available today. So if I just check at the Q&A box, we did have a couple of questions, Matt, come through whilst you were presenting.
Sure.
One of them was on the, as I can guess, the real-time adaptive email. So what do you need to add to your creative to make it work is the question.
So the way it's working in this demo and the way we've set it up here is for the image source, instead, obviously classically you normally have a URL path to the image. It's doing a callback to DDE, and DDE will then supply back the right and correct and relevant image source. So in this very simple demo, it will then go and query in real time the stock levels of our store, and then it will provide back one or two options that are either the learn more image or the out of stock image. So effectively it's a callback to DDE, and then DDE then provides the image path back. And of course that's all happening in milliseconds. As you saw, it's instant.
Yeah, great, fantastic, good. Thanks for that. And actually, we do have a question on the last engaged date as well. How do I add dates to my lists is the question.
Right, so that all happens automatically. As I mentioned earlier on, the last engaged date is effectively controlled by the platform itself. So a couple of things we want to do. We didn't want to have any nulls in there, like no last engaged date, because that potentially could introduce ambiguity, because if you select last 7 days or a certain month, will that include those or not include those? And it also provides consistency. So we actually went through a process with on all of our email clients' accounts, and you'll see that every single recipient has a last engaged date, and that's based on those rules, either when they were uploaded or when they last either did an open or a click. So as users, you don't have to do anything or worry about it. It all just happens for you.
Great, thanks, Matt. And yeah, one more question on that actually was, what happens to the engaged date if someone unsubscribes?
Again, yeah, good question. Again, to not have any ambiguity, one or two things will happen actually. If they've unsubscribed by sending an email or something like that, sort of effectively a manual process, then nothing happens to last engaged date. It will still be whatever it last was. Of course, that doesn't really matter, because you may want to use that in some kind of reporting to understand the engagement of your audiences overall, and then understand that split by subscribed and unsubscribed. And of course, because they're unsubscribed, you won't be able to send them an email anyway. If they actually click on the unsubscribe link in your email, that's also a click. So actually, the last engagement is to unsubscribe by click. So it would actually technically, it will actually update the date to that unsubscribe event. But again, that engage date will still be there, but because they're unsubscribed, they won't get any emails.
Great, good, great, thank you. That was a very comprehensive answer, Matt, but perfect. I'm just going to quickly scout through the Q&A box and my inbox to see if there's any other questions. So I guess with all of that said, just want to say a huge thanks to everyone for attending today. We really appreciate your guys' attendance and for being here. Really would like to point you to our new website. It's been completely rebranded this week, www.auterion.com. Please do check us out. Please do take a look around. And also for any of the more documentation around any of the features that we've mentioned today on the last engage date, the barcodes and QR codes, please go to help.auterion.com and you'll be able to find all of that information on there as well. And if you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to myself. And my email is customersuccess@auterion.com. So thank you very much again for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you next month. Thanks, guys. Cheers. Bye-bye.